Hey y'all, it's Lucy, paperglitterglue.com, and today is the Gothic Farmhouse. So I made this pattern. I just really like it. I made crackle paint siding, and I'll show you how to do that. And it's got a rusted roof, and it's got a porch, and I added a fence. This fence is available with this pattern. But anyway, today is the Gothic Farmhouse, and I'll show you how to make it. For the Gothic Farmhouse, I want to go over the supplies really briefly. For most of the structure, I used cardboard, 22-point cardboard, which is relatively light cardboard. I think Amazon calls it medium chipboard, and it seems like Cricut Design Space calls it light chipboard, but it's really a pretty lightweight cardboard, probably about the weight of or the thickness of poster board. And I actually used cardboard for the crackle paint siding as well. I did use cardstock for the columns. It's just so much easier to fold little pieces like this out of cardstock, and it doesn't really matter which cardstock you use. The roof is what I call the rusted roof, and it's made with aluminum duct tape and some alcohol inks to give it that kind of vintage look. I used paint. Mostly I used either black or white gesso. That's a primer, an acrylic primer. For the base, this base, let me turn it over, is about 3 layers of corrugated cardboard that I hot glue together, and then I cover it with paper, newspaper, brown packing paper, and then paint it. For gluing some lighter items together, I used Barely Art glue. For the heavier structural things, I used a slightly thicker, slightly stronger glue. Fast grab tacky glue is the one that I used. In order to cut out my pattern, I used my Cricut Maker, and I'll go over how to cut it out within Cricut Design Space. When I'm making something like this, I always use, or almost always use, painter's tape to help hold things down while I'm waiting for the glue to dry. On my Cricut, instead of using the scoring wheel, I usually use the scoring tool. It's just so much faster. And I made a separate video talking about how to make crackle paint siding. Basically, you use a base color, and you can use either cardboard or cardstock that is a contrasting color to whatever your top coat is. I use either black cardstock or black painted cardboard. And then Elmer's Glue All is the one that I found that works the best. And then I overpaint it, and you just get this incredible detail. It's just one of my favorites. So I just wanted to briefly tell you about the materials so you kind of understand. It's not that there's so many of them, but I just didn't want you to get confused. And I painted this red. I actually just used a Sharpie to draw the mortar. And I did it in black because I just thought it looked a little spookier. Okay, now let's go to Cricut Design Space and see how to set it up within Cricut Design Space. And basically that means find all the score lines. And I'm going to show you how it works in Cricut Design Space. This is the Gothic Farmhouse structure, and I'm going to click Continue in the lower right-hand corner, this green button down here, Continue. Image Details, if you want to add some extra details, tags, add it to a collection, you can do that on the Image Details page. Now we're going to go to Upload, also in the lower right-hand corner, and here's my file. It's at 100% scale, or it's showing, at 100% scale. So I'm going to reduce it so I can see all the pieces I need. And I reduced it just on the screen, not in actuality, down to 25%. So the first thing I'm going to do is ungroup. And I always check my scale. That's my scale square. And it's 1 by 1. And we can delete that when we know that it's correct. There are a number of score lines in this project because it's got decorative trim with score lines, it's got columns, it's got a porch, and the house itself. So I'm just going to real quickly show you score lines because that seems to be the most confusing thing. And then I'll mention the many different pieces. This is the main body of the house. You can see that it's just under a 10.5 by 6 inches, just over 6 inches. And the idea was so it would fit on one 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock or cardboard, or if you're doing 12 by 12 cardstock, it easily fits. All right. When you click on this piece and you go over to the layers panel on the right-hand side, you see these kind of funky series of lines. Those are the score lines. So click on that. So that's the only part you've selected. And now we're going to go over to the left to the operations menu. And I always draw score lines in red. I know I say that a lot, but I think it makes it easier for you to be sure this is a score line. Now let's go to basic cut, the down arrow rather, and beside it, it says basic cut, but we're going to scroll down to this little section in the middle that says score. I'm going to click score, and now you can see that the score lines have turned into dashed lines. Let's make sure that our Cricut understands that these lines belong to this piece. So we go down to the bottom of the layers panel with the little sideways paper clip and attach. Let's do the same thing. The roof has a score line. This is a roof piece. Let's see all the pieces in the roof. There's one single line for the roof piece. I'm going to click on that single line. There's my red color box. Scroll down in the operations menu to score. Select the entire piece again and attach. Here's the little front gable roof on the Gothic Farmhouse. It also has one little score line. Let's click on that line. Operations menu, score, entire piece, attach. The chimney has a number of score lines. So I select the chimney. I use the little down arrow, pick out the score lines. Operations menu, score, attach. Let's see what else. The farmhouse, this is actually the farmhouse roof. The porch roof, and it has one score line as well. Select it. There's my little red color box. Score. Select the roof and the line together. Attach. This is the decorative trim that goes on the front gable of the Gothic farmhouse. So let's look at all its pieces. Let's select this score line. We see our red color box. Score, select the entire piece again in the layers panel and attach. We've got these are the side gable decorative pieces. So let's go down, select the score lines. We see my red color box, so we kind of know that this upside down V thing here is indeed a score line. Score, select them all, attach. And we can do the same with the second piece, or you could duplicate it if you didn't want to bother. The upside down V, red color box, operations menu, go down to score, select the entire piece, attach. I'm sure there's more. Oh yeah, there's lots more. This is the porch base for the Gothic farmhouse. Open it up, select those lines, red color box, score, select the entire piece, attach, and then I'll do the same thing. I'm not going to bother boring you with that, but I'm going to do the same thing with the columns on it. All right, the only thing next is to click Make It. For the settings, I made this one out of cardboard. I actually did all the pieces out of cardboard, and I think the setting is something like medium weight cardboard or medium chipboard, and that's what I used. If you're going to use cardstock, I would use a heavier cardstock, 80 to 110 pound cardstock, and use the heavy cardstock setting. And I believe that's it for setting up the Gothic farmhouse in Cricut Design Space. Also, remember, Cricut updates its design space frequently, so it may not look like this whenever you make it, but at least you know where the score lines are. And remember, we've got the score lines for each of the columns, the 4 columns. All right, now let's go do construction. All right. I hope this doesn't look intimidating. These are all the pieces for the Gothic farmhouse. And I'm using tacky glue, quick dry tacky glue. And also for putting the smaller details on, I'm using my Barely Art glue. And let me just explain to you what all the pieces are. This is the main body, which I've covered with kind of homemade crackle paint siding. And I've got a separate video showing you how I did that. Porch columns, and I'll make one column for you. This is the rusted roof, and I've got a rusted roof tutorial as well. This is the porch roof, and this is the front gable roof. This is the kind of the gingerbread trim for the front gable roof, and this is the side trim for the side gables of the house. Little windows. This I'm kind of debating about this. This is the fireplace. It's not a fireplace, it's a chimney. It's a chimney. I don't know. The fact that it's red, just like, I don't know if it fits, but that's why I haven't glued the little bat covering on it. Windows, I distressed each one with some black ink to make them look old. Hard to see. And this is for the railing on the porch. I think it's a fun detail. Let me show you on the prototype. I made this out of cardstock, and it is actually very sturdy. I think this is 1 10-pound cardstock, but I wanted to kind of make a really sturdy one. So this one's out of cardboard, but I just want to show you it works in cardstock. I made the window a little smaller. I thought that was too big. It didn't match the proportions of the windows, so the circular window I made smaller. On your pattern, this is the light hole in the back. Oh, and see how the porch railing goes? I put it behind the porch post, these columns, and I think it gives it a little more dimension. So, and you just basically fold it at an angle and then glue it to the back of the post and to the house. And let me see if you can see that right down in there. And there are two options for the doors. I use the coffin-shaped door. This door. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is glue the little details on the windows because it's much easier to put them on while it's flat. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you is that when you add all these pieces of siding, it makes your cardboard curve a little bit. You can kind of fight it and, keep bending it in place, but it wants to go back to just kind of a slight curve. I don't think it matters much. I put it underneath a weight, a flat weight for a while, and this is about as flat as it gets, but it's not enough that it really affects the construction of the house. When you apply the siding with the glue contracts a little bit, and that's why it's kind of just slightly curved. But I just wanted to warn you that does happen when you add lots of details like this. Now, if you use just some pretty colored paper, that's not going to happen. All right, let's glue on some window and the door. Some windows and the door. Oh, and remember the porch goes here, so the door needs to be up a little ways from the porch step. This one, the slightly larger circle, goes for the center window, the center circular window. I'm going to go ahead and put that on so I don't get them messed up, get them confused. You need 9 of the regular windows and 3 circular windows, 2 small and 1 slightly larger one. When I cut them out, I almost always cut extra because sometimes my cats steal them, or if you're clumsy like me, you go whoosh and wave your hand and then they go flying across the room. So I always cut extra windows. I usually cut extra small pieces. I think I included this in your thing. I forgot about this one. This just kind of defines the light hole in the back. You can put the lights inside, or you can just kind of stuff some lights through the light hole. All right, I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry, and then we will construct the house, actually put the house together. This house structure is just like I make all the others. A side glue tab. These 2 are called roof flaps, and these are roof tabs. And we'll glue the roof tabs down to the roof flaps. There is an opening here, so when you have a light inside, you can, it'll still kind of show in this window. All right, first thing, I'm using my stronger glue, a thicker glue, quick dry tacky glue for the structural parts. So I'm going to apply it to the side glue tab, really the main glue tab for the house. It dries enough that it gets tacky and it holds better. It's hard to wait. Oh, and the other thing is I've already got some painter's tape ready because this is a strong house. I mean, it's thick, it's cardboard. It's not thick cardboard, but it's cardboard. And so I know I'll need a little help holding this in place. So I've got my painter's tape. And remember, if you don't want your painter's tape too sticky because you don't want it to pull up your paint, and I mainly apply it at the edge so I can lift it up really easily. Now let's slide this back so that this is even. So just got that corner anchored. And check to make sure it's kind of square. So that's a good square shape. And now we're going to glue these glue tabs, these 4 roof tabs, to these roof flaps. And I think you can see how well the roof flaps help hold the structure of the house. Another piece here. This part is going to be covered by the roof itself, so it doesn't matter if I tear the cardboard here. That'll hold it. And again, check to make sure you have it kind of skewed it. Looks really good. And now this part, we really do have to wait for it to dry because it'll shift. And the next thing we'll put on is the roof. And you really need it sturdy for when you put the roof on. So let's let it dry. All right, I think this is good enough. It's dry enough. These little tabs will stay down. I certainly hope so. Looks good. Now this roof is just cardboard covered with metallic duct tape, and then I stained it with alcohol inks, and I used a little bit of grit paste, so I think it looks nice and rusty and vintage. I've got a special a bonus video showing you how to do that. Now we can apply our glue. Now that we know it fits, we can apply our glue. Slide it on. And then you have to make sure it's centered so that this overhang is equal to that overhang. And they don't always match up exactly right. And then try to make sure you don't skew your house, like you don't put it in so that it's wrong. Okay, and then I just hold it down. Now, normally I would tape the roof down too, but because I don't want to pull up my alcohol ink on the rusted roof part, I'm just going to kind of hold it. But this piece, this front gable, kind of helps hold it. The steep angle helps hold it in place. So it's actually anchored pretty well. Then we get to do some fun stuff. So once it's dry, we're going to add the gable roof. Now, you know, the trick to adding a gable roof is that you put the angled side against the angled part of the roof. A lot of times I see people put it in wrong, and then it kind of makes it look kind of funky. But the angled side of the gable roof should go against the angle of the main roof. It's going to look good. And then once it's all dry, we will slide these into place. I don't want to do them yet because I don't want pushing this into place to force the roof out. So I'm going to wait a little while for that. I think it's good enough that we can go ahead and add the front gable roof. So I apply glue in 2 places. And this is a little trickier because you don't want the glue to show on the rusted roof. So I'm applying a bead of glue along the edge of the gable and then to the back angled part. Oops. Okay. And I'm kind of sliding it on. and holding it for a few minutes, mopping up a little extra glue. And I have a lot of extra glue inside. I think if we hold it this way, so it's kind of angled against the back of the roof, and hold the edges down. Now there is a way, sometimes I put a piece of tape across here, but again, I don't want to mess up my rusted roof, so I'm just holding it for a minute. It's a good time for watching TV or trying to figure out what your cats are up to, what destruction they're contemplating. And I'm going to pause for a minute while the glue dries. Nobody wants to watch glue dry. Okay, I gave up on holding this piece on, and I actually used a little bit of tape to hold it, and it did well. Now I've got the roof on. Next, okay, we can take these off too. Let me remove them gently so they don't peel up my crackle paint siding. All right, next we're going to put this gingerbread trim in, and I have played around with the design, and it's just a little bit long, kind of depending on how well you kind of squish it into the corner. So if it's a little bit long, just trim these ends. So I'm going to apply glue, and it actually fits really well. So I think the Barely Art glue will work fine. I don't think I need my really strong glue. That's more for holding more challenging pieces together. Slide it in place. Try to ooch it up there the whole way. And I think that looks good. I just like anything that gives dimension. So this creates a little shadow. It also covers up sort of the, I didn't cut these exactly right, but you see if you've got this gingerbread trim in the way or in place, it doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to let it dry. And I see a mistake I made. Normally I paint, just like I painted the inside of this, and I painted the background piece black, I should have painted the inside of these pieces black instead of raw cardboard. I'm just not a fan of raw cardboard. But it's not like you really look at it, and the house is going to be sitting up, so I don't think people are going to notice. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is glue this one in place next. This is the wider one that goes in the front gable. It's wider and a little shorter. So let's slide it in place. See, doesn't that really bring the house to life, that little bit of gingerbread trim? So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then it's porch time. Now I have the little trim in place on each side. I think it adds just really fun detail. Now we're going to do the porch. The thing about the porch is it really helps if you glue it to a base. I usually make my bases out of 2-3 layers of corrugated cardboard, and then cover it with like brown packing paper and then paint it. This one's painted with shaded lilac, which is exactly what I did for the Widow's Walk house. And the porch is similar. This one is a little smaller because the house is narrower, and I've added a porch railing. But we construct it the same way. So first I will glue the porch on, and then I will glue the house and the porch to the base. First, let me show you the pieces of the porch. This is a porch. I did make it out of cardboard, and then I covered it with strips of my crackle paint. I've got a video showing you how to make the crackle paint siding, and then I just glued the strips on so it'd look like an old porch. But this is the basic shape. This was one I was making for the Widow's Walk. So it's basically a rectangle with little tabs on the end, and you just fold these small tabs back and then glue them down. And that'll make your little rectangular porch floor. That's what this is. And it goes right under the door. I'm going to use my quick dry tacky glue and line it up, and it looks like this. Now, one reason I think you need to glue it to the base first is when it dries, it kind of tilts upward. And so you want it to be flat, so the base helps hold it in place. So now, to adhere my house to the base, I apply a bead of glue all around the base of the house and the base of the porch because you do want it to dry flat. Okay, I'm going to set it down. I'm going to arrange the house so that it's over the little opening in the base for so you can put a light inside. Let's see if I pushed it back far enough. No, I did not. There we go. See if it's centered. Nope. Well, obviously you should glue the house down and then apply the base. Apply the porch. And this needs to dry. Just like every step, you know, you kind of do a little bit and then you have to let it dry because we're going to add the porch columns and then the porch roof. But I really want these to be steady, be firm before I add the next two pieces. Let me show you a little bit about making the porch column. I'm going to move the house out of the way. I'm using a ruler to help me fold. This is how the porch columns look. There's score lines on them, and they're angled. You see this little angle? That forms the angle of the roof. So the roof comes from the house and angles downward to match this angle, okay? And you can tell, maybe it's not real easy, but this little piece is angled a bit, and that means that's the glue tab. It goes inward. This is straight, and that one goes inward. And I made these out of heavy cardstock, 1 10-pound cardstock, and I did that because it's just so much easier to fold when you use cardstock versus cardboard. When you're doing little tiny pieces, it's much easier to use cardstock. And when I'm doing little tiny pieces, let me show you, I really like to use a ruler or straight edge of some kind. You can use your scraping tool, your whatever that tool is called, that you get the little bits off your mat. And if you hold the rest of the piece down and fold, it's much, much easier. And that's also using a straight edge of some kind also helps with the score lines on the trim. Their angled score lines can be a little tricky. Okay, let's glue our little column together. So I'm putting this little tab which has a slight angle to it, and I'm applying my Barely Art glue and just folding it into a square column shape. When that's dry, I will just cut pieces of my crackle paint siding to fit, but you have to remember it needs to be able to fit on the base. So it need to leave one end without the siding so that it will fit in these little cutouts on the base of your porch. So what I did was when the porch is dry, I'll insert them and then draw a line so that the siding doesn't extend past that, make it hard to put the column in place. The porch roof angles downward, so the shorter side goes to the outside. And I am going to put a blob of glue around each of the holes where the porch is supposed to go. Normally I put the porch pieces in before I glue it down, but I didn't think of that. They're held pretty securely by these holes. Okay, narrow, the shorter side to the front, and kind of wiggle it in place. There we go, and they're standing up pretty well. I try to make sure they're in line, and they really look pretty good. I'm going to let them set just a minute, and then we'll put the porch roof on. So I want them to set enough so that they're pretty sturdy, but I can still wiggle them a little bit and make sure they're in place. Briefly, I want to tell you about the finishing details for the Gothic farmhouse. While I was filming my video, I stopped to talk to my sister on the phone, and I kept constructing the house without paying attention to the fact that I wasn't recording the steps. And the two main steps I did were gluing this little porch railing on. The piece is just one straight piece, and I kind of fold it just so it goes behind the porch columns. You don't have to do that. You can actually glue them on the outside. There's enough, the piece is long enough that you can glue it on the outside of the porch railing. I kind of, for this house, just liked the depth of having these little porch railings behind the columns, but you can choose. And then the other thing I made was the fencing, and the fence is in your pattern. I glued together 3 layers of cardstock and then painted them and adhered it to the side of the base. And there's kind of a crookedy fence gate if you want to use that. A lot of times I don't put a gate in front of my houses because I like to look at the house itself and I don't want anything to obscure it. But I thought it was down low enough that it wasn't a problem. So that is the Gothic farmhouse. I just think it's so much fun, a lot of different kind of techniques. So if you like to get messy, it's a good little house to make. And, you know, nice and sturdy, you'll have it for a long time, and everybody just loves to look at it. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.